guys, welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to be sharing with you my 28 to 34-week update today on baby number 2. So if you are interested in hearing all of the symptoms and all the crazy stuff that's been happening to my body over the last few weeks, keep on watching. So I'll go ahead and just get into it. I wanted to share both all of the new symptoms that I've been having, and then also wanted to share a little bit about what my birth plan is looking like, because we've started thinking about that. I've been reading some books I'll share with you guys, and just kind of like getting ready and prepared to have this baby in 6 weeks, which is just so crazy. I've said this like 1,000 times, but this pregnancy just flew by, even though we've been in quarantine, which has just been like next level nuts. But yeah, I have a lot of new symptoms, some not so fun, but you know, such is life. That's how it goes in pregnancy. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I went to the doctor for my 32-week checkup 2 weeks ago, and I had quite a few things that I wanted to share with him on my list of like new symptoms. Some of them were a little bit scary, so I wanted to make sure that I had a conversation with him and just like double checked that everything was going okay. The first one that I had for him on the list was probably like maybe when I hit 29 weeks. For 2 days, really randomly, I had super itchy hands and feet. Like they woke me up in the middle of the night and they were just itching all night long. It continued on throughout the rest of the next day, and it worried me because I have a couple of friends who, when they were pregnant, were diagnosed with cholestasis of pregnancy. I don't know a ton about it, so don't quote me on any of this. What I think happens is that your liver stops working the way that it's supposed to, and so like all of the bile enzymes, it can't really like get rid of them like it's supposed to. So your bile starts going into your blood, and it can actually end up really hurting the baby. There's like a chance of stillbirth. It's really, really sad and very scary, incredibly serious. And the number one indicator of cholestasis of pregnancy happens to be itchy palms and itchy feet. I told my doctor about it. At my 32-week appointment, he did a blood test to test for any bile acids in my blood, and that came back all perfectly fine. And it only happened that one 48-hour cycle. I didn't have any itching prior to that, and I haven't had any itching since, so I have no idea what it was. Chalk it up to just like weird things that happen in pregnancy, but I'm definitely happy that I got it checked out. The other thing that started bothering me probably right around when I hit my 3rd trimester at 28 weeks was that my belly button was just killing me. When I was pregnant with my 2.5-year-old Charlotte, my belly button never popped. Her placenta was on the front of my uterus, so as a result, like my belly never really got like super big. It definitely got large, but it was not even close to as big as my belly is now. And I think as a result of that, that's why my belly button just like never popped out. But this time around, my belly button popped out at like, I don't know, 26 weeks. And it's not like totally popped, but the top of it is popped. You can probably see it. And it was just hurting so much. Like it was more painful than like anything else that's been going on in pregnancy, which was so weird. So I decided to ask the doctor about it. Turns out I have what's called an umbilical hernia. So it's basically a herniated belly button. My doctor didn't seem too worried about it. He said it was a small hernia. There isn't really anything I can do about it right now. And it's just one of those things that you just kind of wait and see what happens after you have the baby. So it's feeling a little bit better now. There are some days where it hurts a lot and some days where it doesn't hurt at all. Usually the days where I eat really big meals, it hurts more because I feel like it's just like stretching my belly a little bit more. But I've been trying to eat like smaller meals more frequently throughout the day, and that seems to help a little bit, but like nothing else helps. Like I'd put lotion on it. It's not like a stretching issue. It's just literally like my belly button hurts all the time. It's really annoying. And then the third one that I told him about at my 32-week appointment was my Braxton Hicks contractions. So with this pregnancy, I've been getting consistent Braxton Hicks every day since probably like, I don't know, 22 weeks or something. It started really early this time, which is totally normal with your second pregnancy, your third or fourth or whatever. And I got them a lot when I was pregnant with Charlotte also. But with Braxton Hicks, they're basically just kind of like practice contractions. Your body starts getting into the groove of like what a contraction is going to do, but they don't actually change anything about your dilation or your cervix or anything like that. And they're typically not painful. They might be a little bit uncomfortable. Usually it feels like it's just like a tightening around your belly. But, and that's what mine felt like when I first started getting them, like all the way up until a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, probably around like 30 weeks or 31 weeks, they started getting like actually really painful. Like they felt really crampy. It felt like period cramps. And when my stomach tightened, the pain would go all the way around into my back, which also never happened before with Braxton Hicks for me. And they would, I mean, sometimes I have them like 12 or 15 of them in an hour in a day. And my doctor had told me a while ago, if you get more than 10 in an hour, like you need to let us know. That was happening like every day. Like I would have like an hour or two out of the day where I would get like 10, 12, 15 of them in an hour, and they were pretty uncomfortable. And so I told him about it. He ended up doing a cervical check on me at my doctor's appointment just to make sure that they weren't real contractions and I wasn't going into early labor. So he was checking to see if it was causing any dilation or anything like that. And he said nothing. I'm like super high and super closed. So they're apparently not doing anything. They really are just Braxton Hicks. So he said for me, that might just be my baseline of what they feel like for this pregnancy. It's uncomfortable. I'm actually getting one right now, which is really weird. But it's really uncomfortable. They're annoying. They happen all day, every day, but it's nothing, I guess, for me to be concerned with. He said just keep an eye on them, make sure that they don't end up getting like worse in pain or closer together or anything like that. And that, you know, if they do, obviously to call him and make sure that it's not like me going into early labor. But otherwise, I'm not that concerned about it. It's just more annoying than anything else. Another thing that's hit in big time for me so far is insomnia. I had really bad pregnancy insomnia with my first pregnancy, and it is back with a vengeance. Yesterday I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and just like couldn't go back to sleep. And I was exhausted. And it's just so frustrating because all you want when you're pregnant is to sleep. And everybody's like, oh, sleep now before the baby gets here because you'll never sleep again. And it's the most annoying thing to hear as a pregnant woman because you're like, listen, I would sleep if I could, but I can't. So please stop telling me to sleep now. Oh, another really fun one. I am getting lightning crotch. Yay! Everybody's favorite pregnancy symptom. If you don't know what lightning crotch is, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's where your baby either like kicks you or punches you in the cervix and it stops you in your tracks. Like I will just like be walking like down the hallway in our house and my husband's behind me and all of a sudden I'm just like, ugh! And he's like, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, it's fine. It just feels like the baby is trying to kick her way out of me. It's cool. So that has been not such a pleasant experience, but I'm just hoping that that means that she's getting lower and getting ready to come out. So I'm keeping my hopes up for that. Very, very annoying though. So I mentioned in my last pregnancy update that the baby was breech at 27 weeks. She was actually still breech at 30 weeks. When I had my 30-week appointment, I asked my doctor about it. He did a quick ultrasound. He said, yes, she is still breech, but she still has plenty of time. Like she can still flip around, yada, yada, yada. Told me not to worry about it until 36 weeks. And so when I went in for my 32-week appointment, I asked him again. He told me that she is now head down. He like checked while he was doing my cervical check. I don't know if I totally believe him, to be honest, because he didn't do an ultrasound or anything. And it still feels very, like her movement still feels very similar to what it felt like before when she was breech. So I don't know. I don't know if she's breech or not. I'm hoping he was right and that she is head down and like I don't have to worry about it anymore. But in the meantime, I've still been doing some things to just try to like set her up to move as much as possible. So I sit on a birthing ball usually every day, maybe every other day. I do some spinning babies techniques. If you're not familiar with spinning babies, it's this online forum of like midwives and doulas, and they give you different positions that you can get in to try to flip your baby around into the right position. So I've been doing a few of those just every once in a while when I remember to do it, in the hopes that, you know, she's head down and I'm not going to have to worry about having her like manually turned at 36 weeks. If that ends up happening, obviously I'll tell you guys all about that experience, but I really hope it doesn't come to that because I've heard it's really, really painful. One other thing that's been really, really weird is I have been craving apples with peanut butter more than I've ever craved anything in any pregnancy ever in my life. It is so bizarre. It's like one of those things where I have to have it, and if I don't, I am like a miserable human being. So literally every day for lunch, I eat 2 sliced apples, all of it, like big apples, and peanut butter. I don't know why. I have never been somebody who loves peanut butter with apples. That is like not my jam normally, but it is the only thing that gets me through the day. I am thankful that I'm not craving like Oreos, even though I do sometimes crave Oreos and I also eat those. But yeah, so that's been like a really odd craving. So the last thing that I wanted to go through is kind of what our birth plan is looking like now. It's still really early to have a birth plan. Like I said, I'm 34 weeks, so like we still have plenty of time. We've got 6 weeks left until my due date. Baby will probably come after my due date, so we've got plenty of time, but I've been just kind of thinking about what I want this experience to look like and how I want it to be different from my experience with my first daughter. So with my first pregnancy, I was induced. I did an elective induction I was like 39 weeks and like 5 days when I did that, really for no other reason than like I was sick of being pregnant, and I really, really regretted making that decision after everything was said and done. I had a really long labor. I was in labor for like 26 hours with my daughter. For a long time, I was not making any sort of change in dilation or anything. She wasn't coming down, and I had, I think, probably like 3 breakdowns during labor of just like, why did I do this? I feel so selfish. She clearly wasn't ready to come out yet. I should have never like elected to do induction. All the mom guilt that every mom experiences at some point. So coming into this pregnancy, I knew, number one, right off the bat, the first thing on my birth plan was that I did not want to be induced unless it was absolutely medically necessary. I want to go into labor naturally. I want to know what that feels like to like start contractions and just kind of let my body do its thing. So that's the really big one on my birth plan. The second big one on my birth plan, I'm still kind of going back and forth. So I've been reading some books about natural childbirth. I did have an epidural with my first pregnancy, and while I enjoyed having an epidural, once it came time to pushing, I got it really early on. I was only like 4 centimeters dilated, and like 3 hours after being induced that I got an epidural, and that was another thing that I felt like I shouldn't have done this. I could have kept going, like the pain was not that bad. So this time around, I'm not 100% decided on the fact that I want to do a natural labor and delivery. I'm giving myself the option of still getting an epidural if I really want one and if I really need one, but I don't want anybody to offer it to me. Like I want to be the one who says like, okay, uncle, like I need an epidural. And I also want to wait for a lot longer. So my goal is to get to at least 6 centimeters dilated for this pregnancy before I opt to get an epidural if I end up wanting an epidural. My husband and I have talked about possibly doing some sort of like safe word or code word for if I really want the epidural, so that way he knows like, okay, it's legit, it's real, like she needs to do it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then that leads me to kind of the last piece of my birth plan, which is, I talked about this a little bit in a couple of videos ago, but we're still kind of in lockdown here for coronavirus. So I want to limit the time that we're in the hospital as much as possible. I wanted to do that anyway, but even more so now, like it's just not comfortable being in the hospital. I'd rather be in my own house. So I want to limit that time in the hospital as much as possible, and especially because of coronavirus, and I don't want to have the possibility of getting sick in the hospital. So what I plan on doing is laboring at home for as long as I possibly can, and then we'll go to the hospital. And then when I had my daughter Charlotte, we only had to stay in the hospital. I had her on Friday at 5:42 a.m. and we were able to leave the hospital Saturday around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I want to like push for that again. Like if we don't have to be there for a full 2 days or whatever, like let's cut that time as short as possible. So yeah, that's kind of the goal. You'll notice that with all of the birth plan, nothing is super like, this is the music that I want to listen to, and like these are the essential oils that I want to have. And there's nothing wrong with that type of a birth plan, but the number one thing that I learned from my first experience, and that any experienced mother will tell you, is that it doesn't matter how great your birth plan is, your baby is not on any sort of plan. So they're going to do whatever they want to do to get into the world. A lot of things can go very differently from what your plan is. And so if you have this really elaborate, in-depth birth plan, chances are you'll end up not following that plan and probably feeling like bummed out about it. So yeah, I just have kind of like the outline of, I don't want to be induced unless it's absolutely necessary. I don't want anyone to offer me an epidural unless I say the safe word and like, I need an epidural. I want to labor at home for as long as possible, and I want to stay in the hospital for as little time as possible. So that's pretty much it for my birth plan right now. Some things that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of like what I'm reading, what research I'm doing. Okay, so the book that I've been reading is Natural Hospital Birth by Cynthia Gabriel. I really like this book because it just kind of walks you through like how to still have that home birth experience, but in a hospital, which is really important to me. I just feel better being in a hospital. My husband feels better having me be in a hospital. So it's been really good just reading all through like, this is how you create a birth plan. These are the types of things that you're probably going to be asked when you get to the hospital, and like, here's your options. So it's a really, really good one if you're thinking about going natural in labor and delivery. And I think even if you're not, even if you just want to know a little bit more about giving birth in a hospital, this is a really good one. Another book that my husband has been reading is called, The Birth Partner. I don't remember the name of the author, but I'll link it below. And that one's really cool because it's basically a book geared toward the person that's going to be supporting you while you go through labor and delivery. So for him, it talks about the types of experiences that I might be having, how to best support me, whether it's by like specific massages or just by like being my advocate for the hospital in case they're asking questions and I can't answer. How can he best be an advocate? So that's been a really good one. He's learned a lot of really great stuff in that book, so I highly, highly recommend that one. And then I have been listening to the Birth Hour podcast. If you're not familiar with the Birth Hour podcast, it's just hundreds of women's birth stories, and it's so nice because you hear all of these different perspectives on women who've had natural births, C-sections, elective C-sections, and emergency C-sections, really long labors, really short precipitous labors. So you get to see a lot of these different perspectives from different women, and it ultimately just makes me feel like I'm more prepared for what's to come. Even though I've already gone through this once, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know when I went through it with my first daughter. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend the Birth Hour. It's a really awesome podcast. But that is it, I think, for this update. So I am officially 34 weeks. I'll be 35 weeks in just a few days. And we're officially on doctor's appointments every 2 weeks. And then after this next one, I'll be going every single week. So baby is almost here. I am really excited and nervous and ready to have a cocktail, to be totally honest. I feel like I've earned a cocktail. Like, there's a global pandemic going on. But anyway, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Oh, let me show you the bump before we go. Here is the big old bump in all of her glory. Whew. It is hard for me to move around. See, there's my belly button just kind of sticking out on the top there. But yeah. She's a big girl. All right, so thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Please hit the bell notification so you know when I post my next video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Girl, I know what's bothering me. I need somebody to